Well, hello, vinyl community. Elliot here, Lazy Dogs Records. Got a record review for you. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about an album I just received about a week ago. Emmylou Harris and the Nash Ramblers, Ramble in Music City. Just released newly found live recordings. She had been on the national scene since about 1972 or 3 when she went out with Graham Parsons touring, and then went out on her own as a solo artist after that, recorded a bunch of albums, and by 1990 she was a little burned out, and she was considering, or 1989, and she was considering maybe taking that 89-90 year off, about a year off from the music scene and get rejuvenated. But she called and consulted a friend, a guy named John Starling, who was former lead singer for the Seldom Scene, an excellent solo artist in his own right, and a friend of hers, and from the DC area. In fact, John Starling is the person that introduced Chris Hillman and other members of the Burrito Brothers to Emmylou, and in turn then Chris Hillman, knowing that Graham was looking for a partner, a singing partner, told him about her, and Graham ended up convincing Emmylou to go on the road with him and go into the recording studio with him as his duets partner, and thus her national career beginning. I don't know, when did the two Graham Parsons solo albums come out? 72 or 3, something like that. And so for almost 2 decades, she had been touring relentlessly, recording relentlessly, putting out a bunch of albums. She was kind of burned out. Now, her band has, throughout her solo career, always had a reputation of being one of the best live bands you could possibly put together. She had former members of Elvis's band. She had people like Ricky Skaggs, Rodney Crowell, Albert Lee, just a who's who in the world of music working in her band. She always had a top-notch band, an electric band. And she had put out a couple of semi-acoustic, almost bluegrass, not quite bluegrass albums. She dabbled in the acoustic with a few of her albums, but primarily it was an electric country sound that she was putting out for consumption. Had success as a country rock artist, selling a lot of albums, touring. Had success as a radio-friendly country artist, putting out singles as well. And so she was at a kind of a crossroads in around 1989, 1990, and she consulted her friend John Starling. Starling said, instead of taking time off, that'll be boring, and she agreed. That would be, she'd be bored to death in no time if she just completely shut down the operation, say, for a year or something like that. He said, why don't you put together an acoustic band? And so she took his advice, and he said, in fact, Sam Bush is leaving. URS Revival is disbanding, or Bush is leaving. He'd be a great person to get to help you put it together. So she calls up Sam Bush. Bush says, I don't want to put it together for you, but I'll be in your band. So she's got the first member set up there, and they go on again consulting with John Starling. And Sam, I'm sure, is helping her scout out and things like that, and they put together a band and start rehearsing. The first tour takes place, and this is a recording from the last date in that first tour. They had rehearsed a lot. They had their sound down, and they had gone on tour. Started out in London, in fact, on their tour, and had been on the road for several months. And they came back to Nashville, and they did this performance in the Tennessee Performing Arts Center in downtown Nashville, not far from the Grand Ole Opry. And this tape was made of their performance on September 28th, 1990, and it sat in the vaults, forgotten about, and it got dug out just recently, and they so about 30 years later, it was discovered in the vault among a lot of other tapes of recordings, live and studio recordings. And when they played it, they said, "Wow, this is just a really good example of this band at this time." So the band itself, of course, you've got Emmylou Harris singing most, but not all, the lead vocals, and playing acoustic guitar. You got Sam Bush, a world champion as a teenager while still in high school, multi-time world champion fiddler and mandolin player. He'd been mainly playing the mandolin. He'd been playing both, but the mandolin really became his primary instrument while he was with the Newgrass Revival, his band actually, the Newgrass Revival. And so he's playing mandolin and he's playing the fiddle as well, and doing some of the vocals. And then you got Al Perkins from out on the West Coast, played with all the luminaries. He was in the one version of Flying Burrito Brothers. He recorded in the studio on the West Coast a lot with those various artists, like Chris Hillman especially, toured a lot with Chris Hillman. He was in Manassas with Stephen Stills, the band Manassas. Just a resume that's just outstanding. Now, he's going to be playing the dobro, or resonator guitar, and he's also doing some banjo, although quite honestly, I'd have to really be listening for it to pick it up on this recording. I'm mainly hearing his work on the dobro, with dobro. And Roy Husky Jr., who is the bass player, upright bass, acoustic bass player, and Larry Atamanuk, who is playing the drums, which sometimes is not and sometimes is found in acoustic-based bands. Very simple setup on the drums, usually not much more than snare drum being used in this type of setting, or else it will overpower. But he is on the drums. They do have a drummer there to help the bass lay down the rhythm. And the only kind of newcomer in the band is John Randall Stewart. John Randall Stewart was very young. He was 22, 3 years old at this time, and he had just been dazzling people with his acoustic guitar work and his high tenor vocals. And he was brought in again by the suggestion of John Starling, I believe, and was a great addition to the band. So he's doing the lead acoustic guitar, he's doing the high tenor vocals, he's doing harmony vocals, and he's also playing some mandolin. If Bush is playing the fiddle and there's a mandolin in there, then it's Stewart playing the mandolin. So that's the makeup of the band. Now, the album itself is on None Such Records, and they do a really good job. It's produced by Alan Reynolds. It's engineered by John Rawson and Mark Miller, mixed by Mark Miller and Buster Allen, and mastered by Eric Kahn. This is a German pressing, and I must say they did an excellent job. All the technical aspects were just outstanding. The recording is beautifully done. It's mixed extremely well. The clarity of the sound, there's no tape hiss at all in it. There's no you get a real good sound stage from this recording. Each instrument seems to be unto itself. Nothing is mushed together in the sound or anything like that. So it's really well done. It's a black vinyl. I don't think there's anything I need to show you about the black vinyl. Now, I pre-ordered this from None Such when I found out it was coming out, and as part of the pre-order, this was not an expensive record. It's a two-record, double record gatefold, not an expensive record. I think maybe $26 or something like that, and it came with this little poster with Emmylou's scribble there, which is nice. I mean, it's not something I had to have, but when you pre-order something, it's nice to get a little something, a little bonus in there with it. And as I say, it's a double gatefold, all four sides. It's not one of those three sides and an etching on the fourth. And so you're getting basically most of a show, most of a live. I mean, you can probably figure they probably played an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours. So with four sides, there's probably an hour and 15 to 25 minutes on here. So a lot of the show. And the album is dedicated to John Starling, who has passed away recently, and to Roy Huskey Jr., who passed away in 1997. The album is the songs on the album. A lot of good songs. There's no surprises on here. You're not going, oh wow, that is such a cool interpretation of that song by Emmylou, or I've never heard Emmylou do that song, or that's not on any of her albums. Basically, what they're doing is reimagining many of those songs that she has done for the last 15 or so years, reimagining them in a more acoustic presentation. And so it's reworkings of songs from her catalog. But songwriters, are impeccable. There's one or two that Emmylou wrote. She was not a prolific songwriter, although she did write some of her material. But one of the great aspects of Emmylou's career is how well she could select music, how well she interpreted other people's songs. But you've got songs from a one-time hot band member, Rodney Crowell, a couple of those. The great Don Gibson, one of his songs. A.P. Carter from the Carter Family. Delbert McClinton, Two More Bottles of Wine, which she kind of made famous. Paul Simon's song is on here, The Boxer. Townes Van Zandt, If I Needed You, is on here. There's some gospel songs, Wayfaring Stranger and Greener Pastures. There's one instrumental on here, and it's Remington Ride, I believe. And so it's really a well put together album, but it's not like you're going to get this and say, the only time I've ever heard her do this song, or wow, she takes this, big heavy metal song and makes it into acoustic or anything like that. It's not, it's not groundbreaking in that manner. What it really is a documentation of one of the outstanding bands in music in the 1990s, the Nash Ramblers. By the way, Nash Ramblers is kind of a tribute to where they were based out of, Nashville, and Emmylou's childhood parents' car, was a Nash Rambler. And in fact, that's the picture on the back here. Okay. All right. So my impressions of this album. It doesn't have all the whistles and bells you'd get from a live rock album. The audience is subdued. They are sitting in a performance arts center where you might have gone to hear a classical orchestra or something like this. They're sitting down in their seats and they're listening intently and appreciating the music and clapping when the songs are over. Nobody's hooting and nobody's hollering, so no distracted noises from the audience. The musicianship, of course, is impeccable. These are some of the great musicians out there working during this period. So you've got great musicianship. Interplay is excellent. You can tell they've been on the road and they have fine-tuned. They had rehearsed for a few months before they went on the road, and they worked down every kink there could possibly have been on the road. So this is their last performance. They finally make it back after a fairly long tour, and they do this show, and there's not a missed note that I could detect. Now I'm no musical, I know people that are more play instruments a lot better than I do. can pick out things and stuff. But I don't think you're going to find anything in there. Everything is impeccably done. The they're very together, I guess you'd say. They're a tight band, and they're having fun out there as well. Solos, acoustic guitar, mandolin, fiddle solos, dobro solos. They're not long, intrusive jams. They are a part of the song structure, not a wandering jam band type thing. So they're lovely melody driven solos is what I would say they are. And they may be very short. They're just a part of a song that's going to run 3 to 4 or 5 minutes at most. Sometimes vocals are shared. There's some duet singing. There's a lot of harmony singing in here, and the harmonies are just perfect. Great harmonies. Now, one of the things, sometimes if something's not recorded well, when you get into those higher notes, it seems like you got I like a good crisp sound. Some people don't like a crisp sound at all. I like a good, like a crystal crisp sound coming from acoustic instruments and vocals and things like that, but not to the point where it takes away the warmth of it. You can have both, but sometimes in recording process, those high vocals will be they'll become I don't know what the term might be. They get beyond the point of being crisp and precise, and you get a symbiance, and you get maybe a metallic sound. At that point, you don't get that. It feels like they're taking it right, they're turning the pods right to that point and not going, so the dial's not quite going too far. It's almost there, but it's not quite. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody listening, but that's just me and my imperfect way of trying to describe it. There's not a heavy bass. Now, rockers love a lot of bass. You're not going to get a lot of prominent bass in here. The bass is there and you can hear it, but it's not overwhelming at all. By the way, Emmylou loved Roy Husky Jr. She said he was the heartbeat of America, and he said that he didn't read notes or play up or down the scale. He saw colors in the music, and he played different colors. I thought that was a nice description of how he took it, and it wasn't a mathematical formula for him. It was an artistic form for him. Nice balance between, I'd say a nice balance between the mid-range, the highs, and the lows, but it's definitely not too much low end on this. Is it a bluegrass album? No, it's not a bluegrass. It's a bluegrass inspired album, I would say, but it's an acoustic album. It's got a lot of bluegrass flavor to it, but not a real pure bluegrass album at all. It's an acoustic album that is, I'd say, maybe an updated pre-war country album. Pre-war country tended to be more acoustic, and it was more, more use of more fiddle and dobro and things like that. So it's kind of an updated pre-war country album or concert, and maybe a precursor to the acoustic sounds we find in Americana music, what is called Americana music today, if that makes any sense to anybody. Now, even if you own all of Emmylou Harris's albums, this is an album you may still want to get because it reinterprets many of those songs. She had a Live at the Ryman album that came out about a year later, and they actually put that out as as an album, a CD at that point. I guess it was about 91. That was very successful. But some of the songs are on both albums, but it's not an exact duplicate by any means. I've got that CD somewhere. I don't have it in album form. I'll have to look and see how many of them are the same songs. But you know, I wouldn't say if you've already got this, you don't need this. I'd say, yeah, having both would be a good idea. Um, it's worth owning just because it's a reimagining of Emmylou's music, and it's a very, very hot band. Not the hot band, but they're rambling band, the Nash Ramblers. Uh, if you enjoy acoustic music, regardless of whether you're already an Emmylou Harris fan or you're new to her music, I think this would be an album well worth putting in your collection. So, Emmylou Harris and the Nash Ramblers, Ramble in Music City. Just down on None Such Records. I don't know that they offered the signed poster, if that's important to you, as part of the pre-order, but I don't know how many they sold and how many they've got left. I got this directly from the None Such website. You might want to check there first, and you may still be able to get that if you're interested, and I feel like you can get this from most of your retailers, both online and brick and mortar. So, great acoustic music. Emmylou Harris, Nash Ramblers. She comes through once more. This 1990 recording, we get to hear it finally, 30 plus years later. So, everybody, take care, and remember, be kind to your neighbors, because we're all neighbors, folks.